Hi, my name is Melissa van Dijk. Now, can you use your AHA BHA exfoliant with retinol? Well, the concern is that when applying your exfoliant to the skin, it's going to create a low pH environment, and then when applying your retinol immediately afterwards, then it's going to become ineffective. Well, this isn't true because your retinol is able to work in a low pH environment as well. But what can happen is significant sensitivity. So not only dryness on one hand, but stinging, burning and redness. And this can become quite severe. So therefore, my suggestion would be not using them in the same routine. Now you can read online that you can wait 30 minutes in between. So after you have applied your exfoliant, you're going to wait 30 minutes and then head into the retinol application. This way, your skin has enough time to raise its pH back to normal, and then you can avoid sensitivity and you can avoid making your retinol ineffective, which we know isn't true. Now, my concern still is that because you have applied your exfoliant to the skin, even though it has raised its pH again, that it needs more time to reduce the sensitivity. It needs more time to recover from it. And therefore, I do not recommend waiting this 30 minutes in between, but I suggest just using your exfoliant and your retinol on alternate days so that you have several hours in between to recover from it, and then you're going to avoid irritation. And so therefore I have prepared for you an entire PowerPoint going over 2 different frequency guides, because of course it depends on the exfoliant product that you have at home. You may be working with an AHA BHA exfoliating acid mask, which are quite potent, and you would only use them once or twice per week. Or you may be working with a leave-on AHA BHA exfoliating acid toner or serum, which you then can use a few times per week. And so I want to share with you those 2 different frequency guides so that depending on the products that you have at home, that you then can adjust it accordingly and that you have an idea of what an entire week schedule could look like. So as you can see right here, we are already in the PowerPoint. I want to go over it step by step over the slides that you can see right here. I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible, as visual guide friendly as possible, with some additional information into this as well, so I can hopefully help you to understand this a bit better. And of course, if you later on find the PowerPoint helpful, you will be able to download it in the description box down below. Now let's get started with exfoliating acid mask and retinol. Now you would use both products in the evening. So the first example would be starting off with exfoliating acid masks. Now you can see the slide right here. I just want to briefly explain to you what you will see. So on the top corner, you will find the time of use and the suggested day when using, for example, the exfoliating acid mask. In the middle, you have the benefits of the exfoliating acid mask, just in case. Then below, you have the example routine already in the correct order of application. And this is a routine that I can recommend when working with the exfoliating acid mask. And below, you have the overall general guide of how you then would use the products. So, since I already mentioned that usually it will state that you can use your exfoliating acid mask once or twice per week, when working with your retinol on other days, my suggestion would be using it only once per week, or even just use it every a second week, only once per week. This way you're making sure that you're not going to stimulate the skin so that it feels overwhelmed and therefore again experience sensitivity. Therefore, my suggestion would be, as an example, use your exfoliating acid mask only on Sunday so that we have a day in mind. And then on Sunday, you would start off and follow this specific routine. So starting off with washing your face using non-exfoliating acid cleansers. Please keep this in mind. This is really important. Then you're going to rinse it off, pat the skin dry, wait for your skin to fully dry, and then head into the application of your mask. Leave it on the skin for 10 minutes, rinse it off by just using water, ideally lukewarm water, and then again pat the skin dry. And then if you should feel the need, which I can recommend, you can follow with hydration afterwards. So this can be one of the steps or maybe both, depending on your skin type already in the first place and the hydration that it needs. But then this would be the recommended routine that you can follow. Now, what are you going to do on the other days? And how are you going to adjust towards your retinol, especially when being new to it? Because the overall strength and formulation of your retinol product matters. So I've picked some examples to give you an idea. Of course, if you should have any like different products that like relate to my example routines, so that relate to my example products, you can of course just replace it and still follow the same guide, but you should get the overall understanding on how you can get started. So you can see right here my example routine when using your retinol. So my suggestion would be keeping it simple and basically using your retinol on its own, because the less you're going to include, the less likely, the less likely you will come across irritation. So again, it's going to be your evening skincare routine. In the middle, you can see the frequency guide, below the example routine, and below that the overall general guide. So similar to what I just shared with you when it comes to the exfoliating acid mask. Now the difference is that here we are working with different strength and formulation. Therefore, I have categorized them in like low to mid strength, which you can see right here, as well as the 1%, so the high strength of retinol. And you can see that the frequency is going to change depending on the strength that you have. And overall, I can already tell you based on my experience, retinols that are formulated in an oil tend to be much gentler than retinols in a light lotion or gel-like textures. They tend to be a bit more potent. So therefore, the texture, the overall formulation matters as well. But this is a general guide so that you have an idea of how you can get started. So I recommend doing this in a 2 weeks like setup. Of course, if the 2 weeks aren't enough for you, for your skin to adjust to that specific frequency, you can always extend it. But I have to start off with something so I can come up with a general guide. So if you should have a low to mid strength retinol product, as you can see right here, my suggestion during the first 2 weeks would be using it on Monday, Wednesday, and or Friday. Whereas if you have a 1% retinol product at home, use it on Monday and or Thursday. So for the low strength, 2 to 3 times per week. For the high strength, 1 to 2 times per week. And this is a general guide that I can suggest you because retinol has a delayed response. So when using it too often, too fast in the beginning, this can lead to irritation. Doesn't matter if you're working with an exfoliant or not. So therefore, we want to start off slowly so that we can reduce this as much as possible. So you can see the dates right here, you can see the frequency that I suggest, but of course if sensitivity or dryness should occur, you can use it less often. So if you have been using it 2 times per week, narrow it down to once per week. If you have been using it 3 times per week, narrow it down to 2 times per week. Or if you feel like the weeks aren't long enough, just go ahead and extend it. And you will find again this overall general guide below as well. Or even if you feel like that the strength itself is too potent for you or the entire formulation, change it to a lower strength, change it to a different formulation so that you're going to tolerate it much better. So this would be then the first guide on how you can get started and explanation to the slide as well. Then when we are heading into the next stage, if you feel like your skin is ready to use it more often, well then with the low strength, you can use it 4 to 5 times per week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and or Friday. Now the and or specifically will tell you that depending on the formulation, depending on your tolerance, you can go ahead and increase it just by using it like once more or even already the 5 times per week. As for your 1% retinol, you're going to use it 2 to 3 times per week. So we are going to do some little adjustments so that we can really understand what tolerance the skin has. But if you feel like you need to give your skin more time, well then go back to your previous frequency and extend that period before you're thinking of going up and move further. So you can always adjust it accordingly to your tolerance and the product that you have. Then the next point would be using your low to mid strength retinol 5 times per week, whereas your 1% retinol the full 3 times per week. And then after that, if that should work well, you can increase it even further by using your low percentage to mid strength daily, except Sunday when using the exfoliating acid mask. Whereas with your 1% retinol, you would use it 4 times up to even 5 times per week, depending on your tolerance. And then the last point and the last part of the frequency guide would be then using the low to mid strength or even the high strength daily except Sunday when using the exfoliating acid mask. So you can see we're working like step by step by increasing the frequency. But if you feel like in the middle of that specific trial that you figured out a frequency that works well for you, you do not want to use it more often, you do not want to use it less often, it's completely fine to stick to that frequency. You do not have to use your retinol daily to get the benefits. If your skin doesn't need that much like retinol, then it will give you the same benefits. Just you're going to enjoy the benefits of not irritating your skin. So you really have to adjust it accordingly to what your skin is telling you is enough. And then this would be the frequency guide throughout the entire week when working with your exfoliating acid mask as well as your retinol treatment. And again, please don't forget to use both in the evening. Then we are heading into the next frequency guide where you would use your AHA BHA leave-on exfoliant as well as your retinol treatment. Now, when it comes to your AHA BHA exfoliant, my suggestion would be using that in the evening as well, basically the same as you would use the peeling solution. There are different formulations on the market. Some are quite gentle, whereas some are a bit more aggressive. And then you could argue if you can use them during daytime instead. And this can work like as long as you're working with sunscreen to protect the skin and nonetheless. So it doesn't matter if you're using them in the evening or you're using your exfoliant in the morning, sunscreen is key. But please do not forget that the reason why I, generally speaking, do not recommend using your exfoliant in the morning is primarily because whenever I try to do this, I come across sensitivity. It's kind of like the exfoliant and the sunscreen do not like each other, and this is where the stinging and burning usually occurs. Therefore, my suggestion would be using both in the evening so that you won't come across that specific issue. But of course, nonetheless, it wouldn't be wrong. Still, the frequency plays a big role on how often you need to exfoliate your skin, especially when you're using a retinol as well during that same week. So the example routines that I have prepared for you are both in the evening. So again, we are starting off with a similar setup as already mentioned earlier with the retinol. So you have your like time of use right here on the corner, you have your frequency guide in the middle, and then the example routine below, as well as the overall general guide below the example like routine. Now you can see what products I have picked. Those are just some examples that I can of course recommend that I like to use myself. If you should have a different one, well then of course you could replace it. Nonetheless, with such treatments, it's usually a bit difficult to tell how strong they are, like how potent they are, because they do not always tell us what percentage is being used. So you can see right here with, for example, COSRX AHA BHA Clarifying Treatment Toner, that one contains glycolic acid and betaine salicylate. And betaine salicylate is already much gentler than like salicylic acid, but nonetheless, this would be then the combination of AHA BHA. Whereas the one from the minimalist will tell you the 10% mixture of AHA BHA, which is primarily lactic acid, followed by glycolic acid and then salicylic acid. And then we have the one from La Roche-Posay, where if you like search a bit deeper into this, you will find a percentage of 3.5% of glycolic acid and 1.5% of salicylic acid. Now you could argue that COSRX and La Roche-Posay are gentler compared to the one from the minimalist based on the percentage, but of course it also depends on your overall skin tolerance and how often you're going to do this. Therefore, it's difficult for me to give you like a straight to the point general guide that you can follow one by one. Therefore, I just went ahead with an overall general guide that would work with all of them. So even though you are working with the gentler formulations, it's always best to start off slowly and then increase the frequency to what works best for you. Rather than if you're dealing with a more potent formulation and you're already overdoing it in the very beginning because you think that it isn't as strong and then end up with sensitivity. So please understand that it isn't easy for me to narrow it down based on the exfoliant that you may have at home. Therefore, during the first and second week, my suggestion would be using it 2 to 3 times per week. So Tuesday, Thursday, and or Saturday. Now, If you have, for example, CosRx AHA BHA at home, that one can already be likely used 3 times per week, whereas with the one from the Minimalist or La Roche-Posay, you may want to start off by just using it 2 times per week. This is like the overall idea that you can get out of it. Still, if sensitivity or dryness occurs, use it less often or change to a different formulation or a different percentage and give your skin more time to adjust to it when working with such an exfoliant. Then during that same week, since we're going to alternate between the leave-on exfoliant and your retinol, you have again to consider the overall formulation and strength of retinol that you're dealing with. Therefore, it isn't easy to really narrow it down to one general guide that will work for everyone. This is why I've mentioned always and or to this as well, because you may tolerate it already more often than someone with a different formulation or different percentage. So in general, start off by using it Monday, Wednesday and or Friday. So you could already use a low to mid strength retinol on days when not using the exfoliant, or just give you like 2 to 3 days in between of a rest. But when it comes to 1% retinol treatment, use it only once or twice per week so that your skin has time to adjust to it, because again, you may not notice the sensitivity right away. It may take a few days. Then when moving up to the next stage, your skin is ready to use both treatments more often. You can use your exfoliating acid product 3 times per week, whereas your retinol, when it comes to the low to mid strength, you can also use that 3 times per week, where you're going to like leave out Sunday, but all on the other days you would either use the exfoliant or retinol. Whereas with the 1%, you only would use it then 2 to 3 times per week. So you're starting off with a slower frequency, like by using it less often if you're working with a higher percentage and with a more potent formulation. That's basically the main goal that I'm trying to emphasize in those example, like routines and frequencies. Then if you think like, well, everything is going to work out well, the next stage, again, in this specific case, it won't change when it comes to the exfoliant. You still can use it 3 times per week if tolerated, but you're going to increase the frequency towards your retinol. So the low to mid strength is going to be also 3 times per week. Whereas with the 1% retinol treatment, now it's the time where you could also use it 3 times per week. So we are basically, if you have a higher percentage of retinol, you're going to extend it based on where you would use it 3 times per week of 2 weeks, or like a few weeks longer, because your skin needs more time to adjust to it. As otherwise, you may experience irritation when using it too soon that often. And so then this would be the overall general guide when like alternating between your leave-on exfoliant as well as your retinol treatment, again, both in the evening. I do want to repeat this again. And now it is important to understand what you're going to do on the days when not working with either your exfoliating acid mask or leave-on AHA BHA exfoliate or your retinol. And this is basically the example evening routine that I have created for you right here, where you're just going to keep it gentle and hydrated. So you're just working with your regular cleanser that's suitable for your skin type, ideally a non-exfoliating acid cleanser in that case, and then adding hydration or your moisturizer afterwards, like either one of them or maybe both, depending on your skin type and overall needs. But then you have like a rest day in between when slowly increasing the frequency of your treatments. And then when it comes to a morning skincare routine, I just went with a very general yet gentle morning skincare routine, which you can see right here. So we are keeping the focus towards the regular cleanser as well as the sunscreen. Now, sunscreen during daytime is key when working with your exfoliant and retinol. Please don't forget this if you have sun exposure, because your skin will become much more sensitive and you want to protect the skin to not make your skin concerns worse. Therefore, this is key. So again, the optional steps in between would be the hydrating steps or maybe other treatments that you have at home. But I did not want to keep the focus towards other treatments. I just want to keep the focus towards the exfoliant and retinol part. But this would be then the example morning skincare routine. And so this would basically sum up the entire frequency guides that I have prepared for you, depending on the exfoliant and retinol that you have at home, so that you have an idea of what the entire week can look like and how you can adjust it over time, and what to do if in case you should come across sensitivity because your skin just feels too overwhelmed by using it too often. So those are all the points that I'm trying to emphasize, and I do hope that I've made this clear with my little example routines, with my frequency guides, so that you then can try this out at home. Now, when it comes to what you will find below the example routines, those are basically some additional information which can help you if you're working with different skincare products, as well as if you want to know more about what products that I have picked, which is something that you can find under my skincare product descriptions. Those are products that I personally like to use myself. Those are products that I can recommend. Therefore, I like to list them so that in case you're curious about it, you know where to find them and what they are, with a little description next to it. Below that, you will find more information, which I have already emphasized earlier in the example routines when it comes to the general skincare tips. First of all, the patch test, then overall how you can wash your face, the waiting time in between, and then the skincare peeling, which often occurs when working with like skincare products, and you can see little flakes on your skin surface. It's not always dry skin, it's not always just the dead skin cells that are coming off, it may also be just a product that rubs off. So therefore I do want to emphasize this in this PowerPoint as well. And then below that you will have the sunscreen guide, so how you can properly basically use your sunscreen, the time of when you should use a sunscreen, how you can read your sunscreen label, what it stands for, so that you know which one you should pick based on your concerns and sun exposure that you have. And you will have an application and removal guide as well. So those are all the additional tips that I always like to include in my PowerPoint slides. Doesn't matter which one you will then look into, there you will always find that information below. And so this is what I wanted to share with you, and I do hope that you find it helpful, that you enjoyed this video, and that you now have a frequency guide in mind. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up as well as share it. And again, I do want to remind you that you can download the entire PowerPoint in the description box down below. Now, if you enjoyed this video, if you find this video helpful, you enjoyed the PowerPoint in general, and you want to support my work, as this is not a sponsored video, I'm an independent YouTuber, and the PowerPoint that you can see is set up by myself, and you want to leave a tip, you can go ahead and do so by clicking on the super thanks button below this video, or check out the description box, there you will find a PayPal link. Thank you so much, and I would really appreciate it. Now, if you now want to learn more about the entire application of the individual products, I'm going to leave some videos at the end of this video so that you can see this in action as well. And I will see you soon in the next one. Happy skincaring. Bye.